Hey, welcome to the Grants Podcast. I am Jim Grant, and with me today is the deputy editor of Grants, the great Evan Lorenz, and at the dials is Eric Whitehead, as always. Let's see. Oh, yes, some business to transact. First, we are sponsored by Health IQ. Get healthy and get a better kind of insurance and away travel. A very, very nifty indeed set of suitcases and, I don't know, what do you call these things? Bags, but most excellent. So, Evan, we were talking today, and you, I think, had a fabulous idea. In fact, so fabulous is this idea that I was about ready to snag it for the front page of Grant's Interest Rate Observer. But we owe a duty to our free podcast listeners, I guess, right? Yeah, we do. So we are going to go with this fabulous observation of yours, and I'm going to try and you can tell me if I'm correct. I'm going to try to reduce this to a couple of sentences, and that is that one sign of rising prices, falling cap rates in real estate, rising PE ratios, and accessible credit. One symptom of all this is confidence in the future. People who wouldn't trust the day after tomorrow in a bear market now look out over the course of decades. Centuries, even in some cases, and are willing to pronounce judgment on investment certitude. Did I get most of this?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What examples would validate this hypothesis of yours?
Well, this week, Austria floated a century bond at a yield just over 2% when its inflation rate's running at about 2%. Now, for you to make money on this thing, you have to assume that inflation's going to be ground-hugging for the next 100 years.
What's the track record in Austria?
I don't think the country's been around for 100 years.
Yes, it has. Hey, okay, Phil Grant's with us also. Phil Grant is now going to take off his headphones, check the Bloomberg, and get us some dope on the Austria. This is real-time research, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to get us some dope on the history of Austrian inflation, and we'll see you in about 2 hours. Okay. Austria. And now I can tell you that I'm trying to think of the composer. Was it Gustav Mahler perhaps said that if he had heard that the world was going to come to an end, he would go to Vienna because everything happens in Vienna 20 years late. So it doesn't stand to reason that now Austria is floating this century bond. I mean, others have done this. It's again a gimmick in this bond bull market that we're maybe closer to the end than the beginning. But anyway, a bond is a promise to pay money, and what money that the Austrians are dealing with, of course, is euros, right? They haven't got the shilling anymore. They got the euro. So what is the euro going to look like in 100 years?
That's a good question. I saw a headline today on Bloomberg talking about the radical right is actually rising to the fore in Italy, and there's an election coming up, and Italy's been talking about creating its own currency. They're a little bit sick and tired of the euro.
Yeah, well, they've done that before. The Italians have middling success. So what else? Okay, so the Austrian 100-year bond is a symptom of this fabulous faith that is part and parcel of a great bull market. So what else?
There's Bitcoin itself. Bitcoin derives value because it's supposedly limited supply. There's only so many of them that's going to be made. But that's true in 2140 if you make a lot of assumptions. Right now, over the last 2 years, Bitcoin has actually increased coin outstanding by about 6.5% per year. So
sounds kind of inflationary to me.
Sounds inflationary to me too, and the price this year certainly seems inflationary. But there's so many assumptions there, like countries won't ban it or make it illegal, like China did this week, or an electromagnetic pulse won't disrupt the networks, or
the quantum computer won't come along and render the blockchain obsolete.
Yeah, it completely ruins the whole crypto part of cryptocurrency.
Well, I mean, as the readers of Grants know, we in our current issue featured a lengthy and I think I'm speaking with, of course, an interest, but I think it was a spectacular survey of the cryptocurrencies, and the headline was Crypto 36,000. And you, listeners of this podcast, can infer what the tone of the analysis was. All right, so we got the Austrian century bond, and they can have it, Bitcoin. What else?
There's Tesla. Elon Musk is a perspicacious guy. He's inventive, but what he's not done is made a lot of cars. I think they produced like 84,000 last year, 25,000 last quarter, and people are saying they can get to 1 million cars by 2020. And this is a company that has burned cash and has had a lot of production problems along the way. But they're pretty sure, based on the stock price, that they're going to get to 1 million cars by 2020. that they're certain about.
Well, it's like 2020 vision, right? They can just see it.
Yeah, that's clear. All else is kind of hazy.
Yeah. Well, I've got one to contribute, Evan, and this comes, to be sure, this is a little bit antique, but it's 2014 at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, that mecca, that summertime mecca of central bankers. And don't you wish you were there once in a while? No. Okay, 2014, Mario Draghi gets up and delivers what would prove to be a very, very important speech on the advent of massive quantitative easing in the Eurozone, right? This is on the kind of launching the, what are they buying per month? $60 billion now of bonds a month?
60 billion euros now.
60 billion euros, yeah. And in doing so, they have pushed every yield down to the floor. I think the speculative grade yield in Europe on average is something on the order of 2.25%.
Which is around, I think, where U.S. 10-year treasuries yield.
Yeah. Well, maybe for some people, the treasury is a speculative grade credit too. But it's not really, objectively. Now, joining us again,
I'm back,
is the editor of Almost Daily Grants, Phil Grant. What can you tell us about the historic Austrian inflation rate?
So a cursory look at some.
Now, we need in depth.
Well, as in depth as would be possible in this 3 minutes that have elapsed since I departed. Basically, the 1970s inflation that was seen here in the U.S. was also seen there. The CPI inflation in Austria exceeded 4% for much of the 1970s, and in the mid 70s exceeded 8% for, I believe, 2 years between 73 and 75. More recently, Austrian CPI has, I'm looking at a 10-year Bloomberg chart now, in 2007 to 2008, it ticked over 3.5% for a period of about a quarter or two. And in 2011, also pushed up towards 3.5%. More recently, for Austrian century bond bulls, will be happy to know that in 2014 and 15, Austrian CPI was about 0.5%, but has now returned to 2%.
Well, probably those 0.5% numbers are more indicative of the future. No?
Yeah, probably.
Does Bloomberg tell us about the Austro-Hungarian Empire?
It doesn't, nor does it. They don't have anything on the 1920s either. But we can assume.
Okay. So I think, gentlemen, that we have formulated our investment position vis-a-vis the Austrian century. Oh, we're selling the ears off this thing. I mean, journalistically speaking, All right. So where was I before Phil Grant came back in with the dope on Austria? Yes, we were talking about Mario Draghi and Mario Draghi's famous remarks in 2014 at Jackson Hole, in which he said that the European Central Bank was assuming a stance of ease and accommodation owing to the signals emitted by the five-year euro inflation swap rate. The five-year forward euro inflation swap rate happens to be the market's best guess of forward inflation. The inflation-linked bonds are not so sensitive, they say, in Europe. So the five-year swap rate is meant to express the market's clearest vision of the average level of inflation starting in 5 years. So in 2014, that would have been 2019. Now, what do we know, Evan, about the rate of inflation, next month?
It's probably going to be close enough to what we saw this month.
Probably, right?
Yeah.
What do we think about the rate of inflation the month after that? A little hazier, is it?
A little hazier.
Okay. So when we're talking about the rate of inflation for the 5 years, beginning in 5 years, is that a little like the weather forecast you can get on your intelligent telephone? You get the weather app and it says it's going to rain on Saturday, but actually it never rains on Saturday. It can sleet, it can snow, it can be clear. It's not going to rain. That was the forecast. It's not going to happen, right? That's for a week out.
Well, the nice thing about living in Chicago is even 1 day out is pretty speculative.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, President Draghi's preferred monetary North Star isn't gold. Of course it isn't, but rather the consensus of speculative opinion concerning the remote future. That's his monetary North Star. Now, Mr. Draghi, I have rhetorical. No, I have an actual question for you. I want you to answer this. This is not rhetorical. Listen to me. All right. So let us imagine we're sitting in the boardroom of a German bank, right? And the year is 2014. The time of year is what? It's July. It's July, and the world is at peace. And the board has convened. We're trustees because it's a savings bank, and the chairman is a kind of a conversation starter, says, gentlemen, yeah, all gentlemen, that's right, 1914. Gentlemen, what do you make the five-year outlook to be with respect to the German mark and with respect to the rate of inflation in the nation of Germany? And they go around the table, right? And the guy says, well, the mark's going to be as good as gold, like it is today, duh, and the rate of inflation is going to be nil. And like that, all around the table. And here's what nobody says. Nobody says, Herr Chairman, 5 years' time, 5 short years, and 6 and 7 years after that. The Reich will be, it won't exist. It will be 1/1,000,000th, approximately, of its current value. It will be tinder for a fire. As to rates of inflation, well, you'll need scientific notation. By the way, this bank won't be here either. Nobody said that. I cannot believe that people think they can see that. I mean, look, we've been in business, 34 years? Yeah, 34, just about, right? I mean, we have got some good calls. We've had some bad calls. But if somebody had to prove that the possibility of long-term prescience, then our pages alone, I would say, as much as I value and treasure my life's work, I'm going to say that that case would not be proved, the case for long-term clairvoyance. And yet, people seem to be, whether it's the Austrian 100-year bond or the production rate, Tesla, or betting substantial amounts of money on what can't be known. And it's not just they can't see it, it's that the odds are stacked against them. What is the upside of this stupid bond?
A lot of upside for the issuer.
Yeah, they've locked in a negative real yield starting. They have a 2% rate of inflation now? Yes. Yeah, so they got a zero real yield for a 100-year.
Well, if we get the sudden rush of productivity for the next century and inflation goes negative, maybe they'll be pretty good.
Yeah, they could look pretty prescient. Hey, I want to tell you about Away Travel. This is it's the required part of the advertisement. I'm going to go off a little bit on the script a little later, but here's what I got to say. It charges my cell phone, so I don't have to worry about having a dead phone while traveling. That's my cell phone, even though yet I don't possess one, which is amazing. Okay, the material is sleek and ultra durable. Interior design helps keep my items neat and organized. Easy to carry up and down stairs because it's so light. I'm going to tell you, I'm lifting this thing right now. This is a beautiful piece of merchandise. I'm lifting it. Evan, do you see it?
Yeah, I see it.
All right. Does that sound substantial?
Sounds solid.
It is solid, and it's compliant with all U.S. major airlines and maximizing the amount you can pack. And it's got a lifetime warranty. It's removable, washable, laundry bag, keeps dirty clothes separate from clean. And I'm going to get around to that again in a second, because if you are a hard body and you travel and you got to work out 3 hours a day, you got a laundry bag full of stuff you don't want mingling with your black tie stuff, right?
That's right. No commingling.
Absolutely. And there's 4 360-degree spinner wheels guaranteed a smooth ride. Well, if you like wheelies, hard bodies, I guess will prefer to carry this thing. Anyway, this is one heck of a new entry into the luggage field. If you check into the special offer, unique promo code and unique URL, you'll find yourself a saver. Here it is. For $20 off a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com/grantspod and use promo code grantspod during checkout. That's awaytravel.com/grantspod and use promo code grantspod.com during checkout. Anyway, good piece of luggage. What else do you see happening in the world, Evan? I mean, central banks are making noise about tightening, aren't they?
Yeah, we in the last 2 days, we've actually gotten a number of them. I mean, these are just a couple of Bloomberg headlines. BOE shifts hawkish with hint that rates could rise within months. SNB, the Swiss National Bank, which is basically buying Google, Facebook every time the Swiss franc rallies. SNB baby steps on franc hint at hope of a more normal future. U.S. inflation picks up, ending 5-month streak of misses. I mean, it seems like there's a number of indication that banks might rise soon, raise rates soon. And looking at the futures markets, the markets are predicting that the UK might actually raise rates when they meet in November, that the Canadian bank will actually raise rates in December. And there's actually hints that the US, the Federal Reserve will raise rates this March. As recently as a week or two ago, the futures markets didn't think the Fed would raise rates until September. And even then, it was kind of a weak prediction.
Evan, if you were a voting member of the FOMC, would you vote to raise rates next week?
Yeah.
Yeah? Why?
Well, I mean, financial conditions are super loose. It seems like low rates have led to a lot of speculative behavior, a huge buildup in debt, and potentially problems down the line.
All right, I'm with you. Hey, I want to say, sorry, Evan.
Just to contrast with people being really sure of the future, though, the bets on whether the Fed will hike or not hike in the next month have kind of fluctuated wildly. The Fed likes to not surprise the market, so it only wants to hike or announce shrinking its balance sheet on the months that it actually does a press conference, which are March, June, September, and December. So if the Fed's going to do something soon, it's going to do it in this meeting. And, I don't know what the Fed's going to do.
Well, it tells you also, does this suspense and the volatility around the guesswork concerning Fed policy, it tells you how central bank centric is everything in the world. Since who elected these people? Now, that's an entirely different podcast. So actually, it's not an entirely different podcast. It's every damn Grant's podcast is what that one is.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to say a few words about Health IQ. This product is seemingly designed for the Grants listenership and the Grants readership because I can imagine it. I don't know by sight, or I don't know personally all of our readers. Mercifully, I don't know, because that would suggest a very intimate circle of readers and not a very good business. But I'm going to guess that our readers are health conscious, and that this particular kind of insurance is going to appeal to them. So Health IQ is an insurance company that helps health conscious people get special life insurance rates. So you go to healthiq.com/grants, support the show, learn more, and get yourself a bargain. So the pitch, Evan and Phil and Eric, is that if you work out 5 times a week, 8, right?
At minimum.
Yeah. Okay, so Health IQ is all for that. It advocates for a health-conscious lifestyle, and they use science and data, I suppose big data, to secure special rates on life insurance for health-conscious people, including avid cyclists, runners, strength trainers, vegans, and more. So in fact, research shows, now you can't argue with that one, right? Research shows that those who frequently exercise with intensity have 22% lower cancer risk, 56% lower heart disease risk, up to 34% lower risk of early death, and a very high proclivity indeed for bragging about their bodies during dinner parties. That last part is just my view. It's not the company's sponsors' view. So historically, you get penalized for family history, body mass index, other attributes, but you don't get rewarded for health-conscious lifestyle. Health IQ wants to change that. So healthiq.com/grants. That's healthiq.com/grants. And just, I don't know, work out and buy Health IQ, right? Yeah. Evan, is there a PS to this airing of ideas, prejudices, and peaks?
Well, maybe a rehash of an earlier podcast. Well, the world seems pretty certain about future rates, future inflation. We're not even certain what the Fed's going to look like in the next 4 months.
Ain't that so? Okay, so the last time I took a stab at the number of openings in the Fed, I was a little on the high side. But, I'm going to go back and I'm going to stick to my number. Because who is the editor around here?
You.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to say there are 4.
I think it's 3.
Imminently 4
yeah.
with Mr. Fisher. It's going to be 4, Dr. Fisher. And then there's going to be 5 until President Trump reappoints Janet Yellen. As by the way, prophesied in the January 1st issue of Grants 2017.
He actually, this is a late headline that I just glanced at. He was conducting a press conference on Air Force One and made a number of positive, flattering comments about Yellen, including the observation that the stock market is doing very, very well. So,
wait, is this the same stock market that during the campaign was in a big, fat, ugly bubble?
Yes. Well, no, it's not the same because now he's the president.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. And on behalf of Phil Grant and Eric Whitehead and the deputy editor of Grants, the great Lorenz, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.